It was too, said Tia. And the house was a tomb of silence, save for the faint hum of a laptop seeping through the crack under my stepson's bedroom door. My bare feet pressed against the cold hard wood floor, each step deliberate as if I were tiptoeing through a minefield. My heart thundered, a wild rhythm that felt like it might choke me. I'd only meant to grab a glass of water to soothe the restless ache that had kept me awake. But no, standing in the dim hallway, I was frozen staring at that sliver of blue light. My husband, James, slept soundly down the hole, oblivious to the storm brewing just steps away. I should have turned back, would have ignored it, pretended I'd seen nothing. But curiosity, that dangerous spark, pulled me closer, and that single choice unraveled everything. I'm Emily, 39, married to James for 8 years. He's steady, kind of financial planner who makes me feel safe in a world that often feels like it's teetering on the edge. His son Ethan was 20 when we met, a quiet kid who lived in his own world of video games and headphones. I was never mom to him, I was just Emily, and that was fine. I'd been divorced once before, cautious about Leuven. James felt like a second chance at something real. Ethan moved out after college, and I thought that was the end of our story, but 6 months ago, he came back at 26, jobless after a tech startup in Seattle imploded. He moved into our guest room to save up. James was thrilled, proud of his smart kid. I told myself it was temporary, but Ethan wasn't the shy boy. Remembered he was taller, broader, with a quiet confidence that seemed toeful. Every room his eyes lingered a little too long, his smiles carried a weight I couldn't place. I brushed it. Africans, I thought, harmless. That night as I peered through the slightly open door, my world tilted. Ethan sat on his bed, the laptop's glow casting shadows across his face. His expression was intense, almost reverent, as his fingers flew across the keyboard. Then I saw it, a video, not just any video, it was us, James and me, in moments that were meant to stay private, moments no one should have seen. My stomach lurched, the glass in my hand trembling. How long had he been watching? How had he gotten this worse? Didn't I scream? Why didn't I storming and demand answers? Instead, I stood there, caught in a strange mix of fear and something darker, something that felt like intrigue. In Ethan's eyes, I saw not just curiosity but a hunger, a fixation that pinned me in place. I backed away, my breath shallow, and crept back to bed where James slept, unaware that our lives were about to fracture. The days that followed were torture. I avoided Ethan, barely spoke to James. The image of that glowing screen haunted me. Ethan's gaze burned into my memory. I told myself I was disgusted, but a traitorous part often felt something else, a thrill I didn't want to name. When Ethan passed me in the hallway, his arm brushing mine, my skin prickled. At breakfast, his smile was casual, but his eyes held a secret, and my breath caught. Why did a part of me feel flattered? I was a faithful wife, a good person, or so I thought, but the pull wasn't inevitable, a dangerous current threatening to sweep me away. One night James left for a business trip, be good too. He teased, kissing my cheek, but for driving off the house felt too big, too quiet. I busied myself in the chen scrubbing, already clean countershin. Ethan's voice cut through Thieselins. We need to talk. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, his gazoon readable. My heart raced as he stepped closer. I know you saw, he said, a slismile curling his lips. What did you say? Whispered, my voice barely audible. Helen, in his breath, warm against my ear. Even more beautiful in person. My cheeks burned, a mix of shame and hate flooding me. This was wrong. I was married. He was my stepson, but he was right. I hadn't stopped thinking about it. What followed was a dangerous dance. Ethan pushed boundaries, his touches lingering, a hand on my arm, a brush of his fingers in the hallway. He left his door ajar, the laptop's glow invited me to look at dinner. His foot grazed mine under a theatable, and I didn't pull away fast enough. Worse, I started playing along, wearing softer pajamas, leaving my robe undone. He told myself I was in control, but Athena was always 2 steps ahead. I knew about consent, about the importance of saying no. I'd read the books, watched the seminars on healthy relationships, sexual boundaries. Erzakerd, they protect us, keep relationships clear and safe. Yet here, I was blurring lines I'd sworn never talk, risk ignoring every lesson about respecting myself and others. Then the storm hit. Literally, the power went out, plunging the house into darkness. Though and howled outside, shaking the windows. I stood in the kitchen, gripping the counter, when Ethan's voice came from low and steady. It's just a storm. His warmth pressed against my back, Hishans finding my waist. My heart pounded. Stop, I said, but my voice shook. Helen closer, his lips brushing my ear. Make me. Lightning flash, illuminating his face, his eyes dark, full of desire. I should have pushed him away. I knew about the power of choice, how consent must be clear and enthusiastic, but in that moment I didn't say no. I let them pull me closer, his hands burning against my skin. The kitchen counterpressed into my back as our lips met urgent and reckless for the first time in years. I felt alive, free from thewit of routine, but it was wrong, and ich knew it when the lights flickered back and reality crashed in. Ethan stepped back, his breath heavy, his expression unreal, without a word. He left me standing there, my clothes disheveled, my heart racing. What had I done? James came home the next day, oblivious, kissing my cheek. Ethan acted normal, joking with his dad, offering me coffee as if nothing had happened. I tried to convince myself it was a mistake, a one-time lapse, but 3 nights later, a soft knock woke me. James Nard beside me, the clock glowing to I knew it was Ethan against every instinct. I opened the door. He stood there, bare-chested, sweatpants low on his chaps. "We need to talk," he whispered. I glanced at James, still asleep, and followed Ethan to the basement. "This can happen again," I said, clutching my robe. He leaned against the washing machine, smirking. "What's stopping us?" I shook my head. "I'm married to your dad," but he stepped closer, his finger tracing me arm, and my body betrayed me, trembling under his touch. I knew better. I'd learned about emotional boundaries, how unchecked desires can spiral, how affairs destroy trust, yet there I was letting him pull me closer, knowing it was wrong but unable to stop. The next month was a blur of stolen moments, kisses and thiepentry. His hand on my thigh under the dinner table, each touch deepened my guilt but fueled my desire. Then one morning I realized I was late to weeks late. Panic clawed at me as I stared at the pregnancy test on the bathroom counter. "James knocked you okay?" And there am. I hid the test in my pocket, mumbling about a stomach bug. When he left for work, I took the test. 3 minutes, felt like years. When the second pink line appeared, me knees buckled. It could be James's, it could be Ethan's. I confronted Ethan, shoving the test into his hands. His eyes lit up. "This is perfect," he said, smiling. "We can stop hiding." I recoiled. "You think he'd leave James for you?" His face hardened. "You already have. Every time I'd at you, you're mine." He gave me 3 days to tell James, or he would. If I told James, he'd leave me. If I didn't, Ethan would destroy everything. That night, I made my choice. I packed a suitcase, left my wedding ring on Theckener with a note, and drove into the night. My phone buzzed. James, then Ethan ignored them, pulling into a rundown model at dawn. Alone, I collapsed, subunged, betrayed everyone, and now I was pregnant, possibly with my stepson child. James' voicemail was kind, pleading toe talk. Guilt crushed me. He thought it was just us, not the deeper betrayal. Thina, pounding on the motel door, woke me. Ethan's voice. "Emily, open up." My heart stopped. How had he found me? I opened the door to see him disheveled with James behind him, his face a mix of anger and confusion. "What were you thinking running off?" James demanded. Ethan turned to him, his voice cold. "She's pregnant." "It's mine." James staggered, his eyes breaking. "My heart." "How long?" he whispered. Ethan smirked. A while. James let out a guttural sound and stormed out the door, slamming like a final judgment. Ethan locked and cruel. That went well. I saw him clearly then, not love but a game had orchestrated it all. The video, the seduction, the test. "You planned this," I said, my voice shaken. He shrugged. "I wanted you. The rest is collateral damage." I grabbed my purse, but he seized my wrist. "Where do you think you're going?" I met this gaze defiant. "Watch me." I walked out, leaving him behind. At a diner the next morning, I sat in a warm booth clutching cold coffee. The waitress, Clara, refilled me cup, her eyes kind. She asked. I broke down sobbing and told her everything. She held my hand, her grip steady. "You're not alone," she said. "Start over. You're stronger than you think." Her words echoed lessons I had ignored about self-respect, about choosing paths, Thathanor, your values. I'd failed, but I could rebuild. 2 weeks later, James' divorce papers arrived at my new studio apartment above a laundromat. No fight, no demands, just silence. The pain was worse than any argument. At 7 months pregnant, I worked at a bookstore. The baby's kicks a reminder of my mistakes. One rainy day, Ethan walked in dripping wet. "You look good." "Pregnant," he said, as if nothing had changed. I clutched my stomach. "There's new scath and leave." He stepped closer, whispering about a DNA test. I stood knowing my child deserved better than his games. When labor came, I was alone in a hospital, timing contractions in a taxi. My daughter Lily was born, perfect, her tiny face, a fresh start. Ethan showed up with a lawyer demanding custody. I fought back, threatening court with help from the bookstore owner. It vanished. New name, new city, no trace on the bus. I held Lily close, whispering promise of truth and safety. I wrote James one last letter. "I'm sorry, our daughter has your smile. I'll raise her right, but I can't undo my mistakes. This story isn't just mine, it's a warning. Relationships thrive on trust, consent, and boundaries. I crossed lines, ignorate lessons. We all know that desire can blind us, that secrets destroy. Healthy relationships require communication and saying no when it matters. I learned the hard way, but you don't have veto. Protect your heart. honor your commitments, and choose truth over temptation. Thank you for joining me on this journey, you amazing souls. If this story hit you hard, hit that subscribe. For Broken Vows, we drop raw, real stories every week. Share your thoughts. Bello, what would you have done in Mishu's?